for the panel discussion to begin. And I'm going to take this opportunity to invite our moderator for the same on stage first. May I request you all to please join me in welcoming with a big round of applause, Mr. Mark Davies, Global Managing Partner and Founder, Davies and Associates. Can we have a round of applause, everyone? Come on. This is going to be a very, very exciting session for everybody out here. And ladies and gentlemen, to tell you a little about Mr. Davies, his experience in distressed real estate finance with one of the world's 5 largest law firms, along with his extensive experience of investment visas, has made him the counsel of choice for many EB5 investors and developers around the world. And today, he is going to be leading this session on the topic of EB5, everything that you need to know about the same, ladies and gentlemen. And may I now request our panelists for the discussion to please join us on stage, beginning with Mr. Matt Hogan, Vice President of Project Development, CMB Regional Centers. Come on, everybody, let's increase the energy of the afternoon. So, Matt heads a team responsible for the identification, due diligence, and underwriting of the projects, receiving loans from each of the CMB's EB5 partnerships, and the development of each partnership. Our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, is Mr. Matt Mahaney, who just gave his presentation. He's the Chief Legal Officer and Managing Director of Pacific Casino and Entertainment Group, PCEF, and Invest America. Like I said before, Matt is a licensed attorney who brings over 15 years of experience in the various sectors of commercial, corporate, intellectual property, and construction-related areas of law. I now invite our next panelist, and I request you all to please join me in welcoming Mr. Ashutosh Mittal, who is the India Managing Director of American Lending Center. Ashutosh is an MBA graduate from Symbiosis Institute of Management Studies, and he has over 18 years of professional experience with top corporates like General Electric and IBM, both in India and the US. And today, he's going to be sharing the stage with everybody out here. And up next, I would like to request Mr. Thiru Vengadam, Vice President and Country Manager, Concorde Advisors LLC, to please join us. Welcome, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, he is an international business leader with over 3 decades of India-US experience. And Thiru was previously instrumental in establishing and growing leading US companies, including SAP, PeopleSoft, Infor, IFS, and Epicor. He's also been instrumental in over 1,000 customers across India, Asia, and USA, adopting business transformation through adoption of digital technologies. And I think our panelists and our moderator are all set to take over the afternoon and a very exciting session ahead.
My name's Mark Davies. I won't talk very much about myself because I want to introduce the panel, but I run a law firm called Davies and Associates. We've been in India for 7 to 10 years. And we've enjoyed taking hundreds of Indian businesses and individuals across to America and other countries. And that's what we do. I have some of our team from Delhi and Mumbai here. So let me introduce the rest of the panel. So if I can start on my left, if you could just introduce yourself a little bit, that would be great.
My name is Thiru, and I think she already gave a very impressive introduction to myself. But with respect to EB5, we are probably the new kid on the block. I was telling Matt during lunch, they are the oldest and I'm the youngest in terms of EB5. And but EB5 is an elegant program, and with all the doubts and confusions that have been created over the period of time, there are over 300,000 people who have got green card using this program. So I think it's a good program. We got a good opportunity here before November 21st. The new regulations are setting in for the Indians and people in NCR to take advantage of this.
Okay, thanks.
I'm Matt Mahaney, and you're probably tired of seeing me since I was just up there for a while. But one of the principals and chief legal officer of PCG, which is a regional center based out of Las Vegas. Happy to be here on the panel and looking forward to some questions. I think that all the regional center people up here are kind of excited to talk about how this program is not going away, and just because things are at risk doesn't mean they're risky, and that we need to look at these projects and see what are the real ones, what aren't the real ones.
So 2 regional centers, 2 lawyers, 3 people. Matt.
So my name is Matt Hogan. I'm Vice President of Project Development for CMB Regional Centers. CMB is one of the largest and one of the oldest regional centers in the industry. We were actually the 2nd regional center ever established back in 1997. We've had a very long history of success, and we have a kind of a simple model, and that is put the goals of the investor first. If they have success, we're going to have success as a company. And that's kind of what carries through to each and every one of our investment partnerships. I would agree. I look forward to kind of talking a little bit about what's going to be crucial in these, especially these last couple of months before EB5 makes some changes that I'm sure we'll get to.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Ashutosh Mittal, and I am the India Managing Director for American Lending Center. American Lending Center is based in California, and it's a licensed financer. It's a licensed lender in the state of California. Along with that, American Lending Center owns 12 regional centers all across US. So I'm heading their India operations. We have our offices in Delhi, that's the headquarters. Okay. Plus we have in Mumbai and starting up in Surat as well. Thank you.
Right, great. So we want this to be as interactive as possible. If anyone has any questions about EB5 or about regional centers, unless your name is Sam Hussain, please feel free to ask them. Not you, Sam. So who would like to, I don't know what people's knowledge are here with EB5. Who knows the basics of EB5? Would anyone like to hear sort of about the very basic things in EB5? Nobody in the room would like to hear about the basics of EB5. Okay. Sam would. Anyone? Yes, sir. Okay, at the back. So let's talk about the very basics of EB5 then briefly before we get on to the sort of the topics of interest. So, gentlemen, you're all from regional centers. Explain to me, like, what is a regional center and what do you do within EB5? Who would like to take that?
So, first of all, what is a regional center? And that's one of the most common questions, because at the end of the day, a regional center is just a business that has been designated by the US government to operate within the EB5 investor visa program. And to become a regional center, it's really not altogether all that complicated. You have to be able to put a petition together that demonstrates to the government where you're going to operate, and that area is your regional center, your geographic location. You have to be able to explain to them what methodologies you're going to use for counting jobs and creating jobs, because at the end of the day, EB5 is a jobs program. It's a jobs program for the US government. It's an immigration vehicle for a foreign national, but what the US government really cares about is how you're going to be able to demonstrate new job creation in the region in which you're picking to operate in. And so how does one become a regional center? Again, you're filing that information, you're explaining to the government what methodologies you're going to use, what area you're going to work in, what the basic business structure is, who the people are that make up your organization, what their qualifications are, how you're going to structure your partnership, so on and so forth.
So follow-up question, right? If I'm looking at regional centers and I'm an investor, so someone else on the panel, like, what does it actually mean? I've got my money, here's a regional center. What do I need to do, and how does a regional center help, and what happens?
Well, the most important thing that a regional center provides to the investor is that vehicle to invest. So you have your money, and you could do a direct investment, sure. But then you have to...
Sorry, what's the direct investment?
That's a direct investment is when you take your money and you invest directly into your own business in the United States. Let's say you want to start a convenience store. So you figure, I'm a good business person, I can do this, I can control this, I can be more successful than giving my money to someone that I'm just meeting for the first time. Well, the problem is with the direct investment, you have to show that you have created those 10 jobs for 2 years. And if you actually do have a payroll for 10 jobs for over 2 years, you're going to have spent a lot more than $500,000. You're going to have gone through all the pains of the management and and staffing it. There's no way around it. USIS will catch you. You can't just have your friends there and say that you created these jobs. You actually have to show that you created them. So a regional center, with that same investment, we are allowed to not just show the direct jobs that money creates, but the indirect and induced jobs. So we have a far bigger kind of palette of jobs that we can choose from, whereas your 500,000 a direct investment.
So what does that means basically? I think what you're saying is, if I'm an investor and I'm doing EB5, I got to make sure that my money creates some jobs, right? If I'm on the direct, then I've actually got to create real people, real jobs. I've got to find Sanjay, Sandeep, whoever it might be. I think what you're telling me is a regional center almost sort of doesn't have to create any jobs, or...
Correct. I mean, it has to create jobs in the U.S. government's eyes, but we're able to use economic formulas where a certain amount of money is spent in a certain industry. Those formulas spit out how many jobs are created, and they count not just the direct person that works at that counter, but the indirect people that benefit and the induced people that benefit. So, so for every plumber out there, an indirect job would be the people that created the pipes that the plumber's putting in.
Okay, so we've got limited time. What I think I'm hearing is, if I want to do one of these EB5s to a regional center, I better make sure that they're going to create, so Ashutosh, to you, like, how many jobs does my investment have to create? I understand they might not be real jobs, it might just be on paper. So how many does it have to create? And if they're just going to be on paper, are all projects created equally? And how, as an investor, can I have some sort of level of assurance that the necessary jobs are going to be created? How do I compare two projects?
Sure. So the minimum number of jobs that needs to be created per investor, it's not a number of family members who are included in that application, but just one application would need to create minimum 10 new jobs, and that has to be proven on paper. And also, let's say, for example, in a project, you have an estimate or an idea that during the construction phase or during the operational phase, that's what my friend said, that the direct or indirect or infused jobs. It doesn't matter how many jobs that you are going to create, but you should always have a buffer. So if I'm creating 100 jobs in total, I mean, taking a 10 EB5 investor in that project, it's very, very risky. You need to have that buffer in hand. So if you're creating 100 jobs, that means 10 EB5 investors. I would probably take like 4 or 5 or maximum 6, just to have that extra bunch of cushion. If anything goes bad, then I should have those extra jobs to safeguard my EB5 investors.
So Matt, I'm an investor. I find this regional center that has this ideal project where all the jobs are already created. There's like what they call a bridge loan in place. And they just say, look, no risk, jobs are already created, I put my money in. Is that perfection and nirvana, or is there an issue?
That's a difficult question to answer for a couple of different reasons. So first and foremost, no, it's not as simple as, yes, all the jobs are created, therefore there's no risk. First and foremost, whatever money was used to bridge that gap between the point in time in which the EB5 raise started and was completed, it would have had to have originally been contemplated that EB5 was ultimately going to become a part of that project. So one of the most noteworthy cases in the industry happened in South Dakota. It was a wind farm. They were building these large windmills for a power production facility, and a couple of people driving by saw, wow, wouldn't that have been a great EB5 project? Well, it was already built. They went in, they started their regional center, they raised money on the idea that EB5 was going to come in and essentially refinance some of the debt that was already included in that project. They submitted their petition and those investors ultimately got denied. Why? Because there was no prior contemplation that EB5 was ever going to be a part of that project. So why I say it's tricky, and there are a lot of people out there raising money right now that will negotiate up front with their lenders in their project that at some point in time, EB5 might come in and take out a portion of that debt. Well, that's also a little bit tricky too, because the USCIS is getting a little careful on what they determine bridge financing to really be, and whether or not the money that was in there at the beginning was actually really truly permanent capital. And again, the EB5 is just coming in and refinancing a portion of that debt.
Gotcha. So, obviously I need to find a project where I think I'm going to create 10 jobs. So coming closest to me, Like, I've looked at this issue, I get this. What else do I need to consider when choosing one of these regional centers or a project?
Well, the program requires not only the jobs to be created, but also to be sustained over a period of time. So if the jobs are already created and the capital continues to stay at risk for another period of 2 years. Now there is some little bit of, difference in terms of interpretation. For example, now that the processing time takes anywhere between 2 years to 2.5 years, let's say from the date that you apply now, there are some people say, well, the jobs would already have been created. In the sense, your money is not going to just stay in the bank. It will get invested from the time that you give it to us. And then the jobs would have been created. But let's say 2 years, 2.5 years, or 3 years down the line, you get the conditional green card granted. Do you still need to create additional jobs? Well, that is where the requirement is the capital still needs to stay at risk till such time your condition is removed. So that looks like another couple of years that the capital has to stay invested. And it can't be just put into a bank and then, it has to stay in a project.
So you talked a lot about like my green card and things, but you know what? I just sold all of my company, all of my family's shares for this EB5 thing. So, I really need my money back. Like, I understand it has to be, my money has to be at risk, but does this mean the project really has to be inherently risky? Or how do I look at that?
Well, to start with, I think every investor should make up their mind if their goal is to attain a permanent residency in the US. That is why they are making this investment, they are mobilizing the funds, and they should be prepared to stay invested for a period of time. And to be safe, consider 7 years or 8 years, this money is not available.
But what can I look at? If I'm looking at a project, right? What steps can I take? Maybe I need another advisor, but what steps can I take when I'm looking at a project to have some level of comfort that perhaps it's not guaranteed, but I'm highly likely to be able to get my money back?
Sure, let me add a little bit to this as well. So, and as you mentioned, there has to be risk. You cannot have a 100% guarantee on the return of your capital or on the idea that you'll get a green card. The program requires risk, but again, it doesn't have to be risky. You can work with a regional center that knows how to structure a project and has a history of receiving approvals using a certain structure and mitigate your chances that you're going to have an EB5 failure. You can also make sure that that company is working with a trustworthy developer, that they're building a project that's fully entitled, fully permitted, fully insured, has all of its funding in place, maybe even has already started its early construction phases, things like that, to know that that project is likely to continue to move forward and complete not only the job creation, but complete the project so that at the end of the day, there's a tangible asset with value there. Now, how do you get at that tangible asset with value? Again, how do you mitigate this risk and make it a little less risky? You make sure that your investment is a sound investment. If it's a loan model, that it's a good, strong loan with terms that are enforceable, with collateral that doesn't allow the borrower to just simply walk away from the deal, something that allows you to get your teeth into the project. We're not an equity model, but if it's an equity model, there's a significant amount of upfront underwriting.
What's an equity model, Matt?
Sure, when I say an equity model, there's two basic models in EB5 for the regional center program, and that is one where you would invest directly into the ownership interest, or you'd invest into a partnership that is going to provide equity, i.e. ownership interest in the actual project itself. Or there's the loan model, and this is something that CMB started back in 1997, whereby you would invest into an investment partnership that would pool capital and then make a loan to that project to be used in its construction phase.
Okay, so does anyone have any questions about sort of giving some ideas about choosing regional centers or choosing projects? All right, Sam, you get a question.
Thank you very much. It's actually a question for all the panelists. Everyone sees all these marketing campaigns about 100% success rate at the I-526. An investor is actually eligible to get his money back on the 829s.
We can't hear you, Sam.
Okay, so We see a lot of marketing campaigns in regards to 100% success rate at the I526. An investor is actually eligible to get his money back on the 829s. Can some of the panelists give us an indication how many 829 successes you've had and also how many projects you have completed? Because that has a massive impact in regards to making an investment into a regional centre.
So what I understood about your question, you're asking how many I526 and 829?
829s, that's most important.
Okay, yeah. So our company, American Lending Center, started 10 years back in the state of California. And as I told that we own 12 regional centers across 19 states in US. And primarily we have been doing our operations in China and Vietnam, which are the top two countries when it comes to retrogression, or what we call as a waiting list. So having said that, most of the key clients, so we have done over 500 EB5 investors, over 70 projects all across United States. And since the retrogression period is the most longest when it comes to China and Vietnam, so there are just a very handful of customers who have completed their 5 to 6 and then came to 8 to 9 during the retrogression period. So having said that, it's approximately 15 to 20% out of that 500 investors that have got their 8 to 9 all done.
Thank you.
Does that answer?
Yes, you have, yes.
Thank you.
So CMB has a little bit older history, and so we predate a lot of the visa backlog issues and things of that nature. We've had about 70 EB5 partnerships. We have I-829 petitions, and I believe about 20 of our EB5 investment partnerships. In total, we have about 1,200 I-829. So those are permanent green card approvals when you talk about our investors. And we represent a lot of investors, about 5,500 total investors, so you can tell there are a lot of additional investors that will be going through that process over the next number of years. I believe in terms of full circle, meaning investors with green cards, permanent green cards, and return of capital, we have about 1,000 investors who have received their capital back. I think that's about, I want to say it's 12 partnerships that have received full repayment of their investment loan after receiving 829s.
As a relatively new regional center, we're a little bit different because we're newer in the space. We're very, very, very old in the space as far as construction goes and developing projects. But as far as a regional center, we're newer, so we partner with people that have been in the space for a long time, have the highest track records. So we think of it as a team, and as a team, you know, the members of the team have processed well over 1,000 to 2,000 applications on probably 15 to 20 projects.
Well, I wasn't sure that Sam is going to ask this question, but I did say that we are the new kid on the block at the beginning. But I must say that we are promoted by someone who has had several companies, started up and then returned over $500 million as investors' wealth. And we have teamed up with a developer who has over 30 years developed several signature projects in New Jersey. And we are governed by a law firm in New York, which I'll talk about later on in my own presentation at 4 o'clock or whatever time it is. And she has helped over 1,000 investors to get through the I-526, as well as stay on to get their conditions removed, etc. So we have brought in the best of the expertise together to launch our regional center here.
So that's your question, Sam. Thank you. Right, so November 20th. Gentlemen, Ashok, what's happening on November 20th, and why do I care about it?
Okay, so November 21st is a very near deadline which is going to come, and what's really going to change is definitely the amount. The amount of current 500,000 US dollars is going up by 900,000 US dollars. So that's just one part. However, the second part is actually the most important part, the changing the TEA rules. So right now, the TEA stands for a target employment area. So currently, places which comes under the TEA have the investment amount of 500,000 US dollars, and places which are outside TEA come under 1 million US dollars, which is going to increase to 1.8 million US dollars effective 21st of November. So understand this TEA part, that which exact region you need to choose after November 21st, what's going to change. So right now, the TA rules are being governed by the local state government. It's not controlled by the federal government. But what's going to happen after November 21st, it's the federal government who will pitch in and classify what is the new TA rules or not. So that's going to change a bit, lot of dynamics. So what we are anticipating is like projects maybe in New York or Chicago or Boston might not come under this TA of 500,000 or what's going to be 900,000. It's going to be very tricky because now TA after November 21st would be under the federal government's decision. So that's are the key two changes that's going to happen.
So I get it. If I want to invest that $500,000, 5 lakh US dollars, I sort of need to get my act together quickly. If I get my act together quickly, Matt, between what are the challenges that are going to face me between now and November the 20th, and what can I do about it? How can I address it?
Well, I would tell you that, so there are a couple things. First of all, you're going to have a lot of regional center marketing coming your way. You're going to have a lot of, one thing I didn't say when I talked about earlier how easy it is to become a regional center, the result of that is that there's about 900 regional centers in the industry. Now, not all of those regional centers are active and not all of them have a project, but there are many, many regional centers out there in what I would consider to be, most desperation mode, where they know their projects probably aren't going to qualify. And so they're marketing like crazy to try and get people to subscribe to their projects in this small window that we have before the 20th. Now, to the individual investor, they're going to have to sort through that and try and make sure that they're making a really good, informed decision. And they're going to need some help, not only on making that decision, they're going to want to talk to a quality immigration attorney, and especially if they're from here in India, they're going to want to start getting prepared on their source of funds documentation. This is something that I know Mark and his firm have helped many, many clients from India with source of funds. This is something that in this very tight deadline, it might be your last opportunity to invest at 500,000, but doesn't necessarily mean you want to take undue risk, either in picking a poor regional center or a poor project, or cutting corners from your source of funds, because it all puts you in the same place, right? And that's a denial, and having to do it over again at 900,000.
So one note I'll add, and I'll let you jump in, is, yes, source of funds is really important, but increasingly important, something we've always focused on, is compliance with local laws and regulations. So I was at a conference about a year ago when one of the other lawyers said, and I won't say who it was, said you can basically ignore FEMA and the Indian side regulations. Well, we disagree with that, and the US consulate in Mumbai has started to disagree with that too. So do your source of funds, but pathway of funds of how you lawfully move the money is sort of, I think, also something important. Sorry, I think I interrupted you.
I just wanted to add real quickly on the TEA. It's a really good point with the TEA changes. Everybody's focused on the 500 and 900,000. But when you're looking at these projects and you're assessing these projects, first of all, do your research, talk to the regional centers, get a spreadsheet out, get all these risk factors down so you can kind of see them all together. But when you're talking about TEAs, you have to know what that regional center's plan is. On November 21st, do they just end? And that's it? And maybe that's okay, but it depends on what their offering says. Are they okay to end that offering before it was filled? Plenty of them do, plenty of them don't. So you really have to know what those documents say, what their plan is to go after that date. And most importantly, whether they even qualify as a TEA after that date, because from what I'm hearing, 60 to 7% of projects probably will not.
One quick thing to add to that too, and that's, I'm glad you brought that up, that's crucial. There are a lot of regional centers that have no idea what they're going to do after the 21st. And frankly, those are the ones that are out in the industry right now saying, maybe there's going to be some sort of a challenge that will make those regs go away, or maybe there's new legislation that's going to come out. There's a lot of people reeling to try and figure out, what they're going to do to solve that problem. If the offering that they have right now isn't prepared to fall short, and the project can't continue to move forward, you got to really ask yourself, do I want to be in a project that could take the risk of stalling and not being completed if they can't raise these funds by the 21st?
Yeah, please.
Very quickly, 2 points. I think the life will go on past November 21st for most of us, because we are all in it for long haul. We are not just trying to, beat this before November 20th and then get as much as, that's not going to work out. The second point I wanted to say is I think we should not wait till November 21st. There could be a gate crash. There will be thousands of people attorneys trying to get in. So if you are keen, if you have the funds, you want to go, do it now, maybe in the next couple of weeks, 3 weeks' time. If you don't have, no problem, maybe mobilize, come back with 900,000 or 1.8 as the case may be, but the money is still going to come back. So it's only a larger sum that you need to make an investment and wait for some time. Because US as the dream destination is going to continue, right? It's a $20 trillion economy. It's not going to go away whether we are doing EB5 or not. So all of us would continue to look at US, as the aspirational destination for us.
I want to hit one more topic quickly, and then we'll just make sure there's no more questions. But supposing I have 2 kids who are, maybe one's 14, one's 15. I've got a long time to wait, right? Don't have to worry. Is there a reason why I should worry about my children getting older? Because I understand, I read it, as long as I file before they're 21, I'm covered. Is that right, or how does that work?
Well, I'll preface this by saying I'm not an immigration attorney. However, I spend a lot of time with them. So it is a big issue, and it's aging out, and you guys have probably heard about it, and you see these presentations that say that you get a benefit for your children under 21. That's when they're 21 at the time that they get their permanent residence. So looking at wait times, you have to look at wait times, and nobody can promise you anything, but if you have 12-year-old kids, you have 13-year-old kids, you're probably fine. If you have 14-year-old kids, you have 15-year-old kids, you're getting a little more dangerous. And
Okay.
if those children get to 21 before you get the permanent green cards, then they aren't going to qualify, and you'd have to refile another EB5 application for them.
So if I have a couple of younger kids and I want to secure their future in America, I think what you're saying is I'm best to file a case, especially if I want to do it at 5 lakhs instead of 9.
Correct, yes.
Gotcha. Do we have any questions on any of this from people in the audience?
Well, one quick thing to add to that too.
Yes, sir.
It wouldn't be 5 lakhs and 9. It would be 5 lakhs or 1.8 million at two $900,000 investment levels. If you're talking about the potential for
Right.
filing 2 separate, or maybe
Good point.
3, if you're talking about the family and the 2 children.
Good
So
point.
It could become exponentially more expensive.
Good
when you look
point.
at it that way.
Good point. Are there any more questions from the audience?
Any more questions?
Sam wants to ask a question.
Would you like to take it one-on-one? I'll give you the mic.
We understand it's most likely to go up to 900,000, but is it still going to be a limit of 10,000 visas per year that gets allocated? Because obviously that will have a massive impact on retrogression and impact on a number of countries.
Yeah, the visa, the maximum visa allowance for the program, I don't see changing in the near future. There is a lot of talk about asking for visa relief to come from a couple of different directions. It could come from adding more visas. It could come from a reduction in the visa lottery program, the diversity visa program, whereby some of those visas are then reallocated to some of the employment-based visa categories. We really don't know. We don't know how they would manage that. We don't know if EB5 would be a beneficiary of those additional visas. The other thing is that there's constant talk about new legislation and that there will be kind of unanimous efforts from the industry to try and pull together to fight for some sort of visa relief in new legislation that could do something by maybe changing the way in which derivatives are counting. And what I mean by that is no longer counting spouses and children in the individual application. So instead of 10,000 visas being issued for roughly 3,000 applicants, you'd have 10,000 applicants whereby you'd essentially be able to have 30,000 people receive visas. Both of those things I think are, there's still a lot of work to be done in getting that relief. I think it's a bit of an uphill struggle, and the industry itself is going to do everything it can to pull together and try and fight for that visa relief, because I think that's ultimately where EB5 is going to continue to remain strong for years and years to come, even with the higher investment level.
Is there anyone who would like to ask any questions? Yeah.
Hello, I am IH Kadri from Ahmedabad. I have a question to Mr. Mark.
Yes, sir.
Being a lawyer, during the process of EB5, if the applicant died, what about the scenario, the insurance, and the procedures?
Well, there are some protections on this. So usually when you file an I-829 form, this is some other things that actually are going to change, but traditionally the person filing the I-829 petition has to be the applicant. There are some exceptions. There are 5 statutory exceptions to that, one of which is in the event of the death of the primary applicant. So there are things that can be done to protect that. The investment in the regional centre would follow under would follow with the person's estate. So you're not going to lose your money. Your money's not at risk. And depending precisely when this happens in the process, your green card should be secure too. Does that answer the question?
Thank you so much.
Finished?
If
Okay.
you're okay with that.
All right, ma'am.
Mark, I just want to add one more thing.
Yes,
Sorry, if I can get like
Sure.
1 minute. I mean, there have been excellent audience outside. I mean, they have so much of knowledge about EB5, and just want to clear this one more thing. So there have been a couple of people talking about that. What are the chances of this new regulation, which is going to effect on 21st of November, not roll back? So what are the chances? So I just want to make everyone understand that. So there is a U.S. Senator, Mr. Rand Paul, and he has been trying to roll back this new increase of 500,000 to 900,000 effective 21st of November, and he has been trying to get the signatures of the congressmen, but practically that is something which is not really feasible in the near future. I don't see that happening anymore. I mean, he was in news a couple of weeks back wherein we were all monitoring very, very close that there might be chances of rolling back this increase of 500,000 to 9. But practically, I mean, I see that dying out and the chances are very, very remote. So people who are still under the impression that this increase of amount can be rolled back, I would suggest that you start working on the application right now and don't wait for this rollback to happen, because it's not going to happen. The chances are very, very remote. Thank you.
I think there's another little footnote actually. So people always ask, does it mean I really have to wait 4 to 7 years or whatever the time frame might be? There are other solutions. So, if you are thinking, wow, EB5 is just too long, a lot of our clients right now are filing EB5. I have one client from Pune. She's just filed 2 EB5s and an E2 Grenada case. Why? Because she wants to take her kid to America in the long term, but she wants to go immediately. So, from across India, we can give you cases of people who have wanted to do EB5, but then also wanted to move more quickly to America and wait in America, and that can be done too. So, just worth bearing in mind.
So the possibilities are immense.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you very, very much. Thank you, gentlemen.